I was taking care of my sister-in-law had open heart surgery, and we were taking care of her. She has cats and all kinds of houseplants, and now I sound like a frog, so you have to put up with it. We have 8 Texas Aggies in the group. Anybody know what Texas Aggies are? Texas A&M, they're called Aggies. And if I have Aggies too many Aggies in the group, I have to use one-syllable words, so it really slows us all down. My favorite Aggie story, true story by the way. This Aggie walks into the doctor and says, "Doctor, I have 12 children, what causes that?" Doctor says, "You an Aggie?" He said, "Yeah, how'd you know?" He said, "I'll let you guess." So he explained to him what causes children. You know, that makes sense. He said, "I have another question." So, what can I do to keep from having any more? And the doctor said, "That's easy. Go out and get a paper cup, light 3 firecrackers and throw it in the paper cup and count to 10. He thought for a minute, that didn't make any sense. So he goes home and he talks to his wife about it, and she said, no, that's an Aggie joke. Let's get a second opinion." So he goes to a second doctor, explains to him that he has 12 children, what caused that? Doctor says, "You an Aggie?" He said, "Yeah." So he explains to him what caused that. He said, "What can I do to keep from having any more?" He said, "That's easy. Go and get a paper cup, light 3 firecrackers, throw it in the paper cup and count to 10. Battery's going on. You just changed it. Yeah.
Is there another one under the table there?
No, Testing, okay. Okay. So anyway, the second doctor said, "Go light 3 firecrackers, float in the paper cup and count to 10. So he went home, got a paper cup, lit 3 firecrackers and goes, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You thought this was going to be a high... Okay. Lubricants, how do you break in an engine on oil?
High power.
High power? What? Full power. Varying power. All right, what oil do you use? What? Mineral oil. It really boils down to who is going to warranty your engine. For example, if you have a Continental engine, they say to use mineral oil. If you have a Lycoming engine, they say to use mineral oil for naturally aspirated gaseous dispersant for turbocharged engines. So whoever's warranting the engine, that's the procedure you need to follow. Half of the engine manufacturers, if they have no specific recommendations, what I say is use mineral oil on all non-turbocharged engines. If you've got a Continental, I would go with mineral oil for that one, for the 2. After run-up, okay, now if you have a factory engine, they've done the run-up and all of that. But if you're doing a field overhaul, when you need to do it, you need to do the initial run-up checks and so forth. Maybe just a quick short hop and so forth, but you need to go about a few hours and then change oil. Again, the first you put mineral oil in, and then after you do your initial checks and flights and so forth, you change back to mineral oil and go again for 15 to 20 hours. Then you pull the engine out, run it an additional one. So you're actually going to do 3 oil changes. The first one about 5, the next one 20, then about 21. So you're going to have about 50 hours on the total thing, all of mineral oil. And you're probably sitting there saying, aha, he's selling mineral oil, isn't he? No. You really need to do it to flush all of the steel and so forth, the metal filings out of the engine. So after this change, the engine temps are normal, and the oil consumption is down to normal, and very little metal can be found. And I would check it in the oil filter. Don't do oil analysis because it'll scare you, and it doesn't really mean anything, oil analysis on a new engine. So, but do cut the filter apart after the second, third oil change and see how much metal is in there. If you can read the part numbers on the pieces of mineral oil or metal in the filter, you better tear the engine back down. But as long as you don't have anything bigger than a pencil lead, you know, then you're probably going to be okay. But after that third oil filter, you should be down to almost no metal in the filter, and then it's time to go on to normal lubrication. Again, use only approved oil for in a certified engine. It has to meet the mil spec and the SA specification. Okay, the big question comes down to is how often do you change oil? You ask people and they say, usually will say 50 hours. That is correct, but really the most important thing is every 4 months. Whether you fly 20 hours, 40 hours, 2 hours, every 4 months you really should be changing oil, and that's what the factory specs say. Everybody sees the 50 and that's all they think about. But in actuality, the most critical thing on changing oil is the month's time. Change every 4 months or 25 hours if you do not have a filter. But still, the 4 months is the most critical factor here. The next most, in fact, the most important thing, if you don't remember anything else from this talk, remember the most important thing is you have to have that oil temperature up. The key to keeping an engine alive is getting that oil temperature in the proper range. And before you can get it into the proper range, you have to make sure that your oil gauge is calibrated. We had earlier one when Daryl Bulldog was talking, and they were talking about, oh, my oil temperature is in the green. What does that mean? It means it's between 120 and 240. Okay. There's a lot of critics in this world, you know that?
Still works.
Okay. If you look in the green range, it normally would be 120 to 240 degrees. The rule of thumb is, as oil goes through the engine, it will pick up 50 degrees. So if you've got a 200 degree oil temperature, the hottest the oil is going to get to is 250 degrees. That works fairly good. If you've got 150 degree oil temperature, which a lot of them are running, the hottest temperature that oil is going to see going through the engine is 200. Physics tells us water boils at 212. So you've got to get the oil temperature, and you have to make sure it's a measured and accurate temperature. You have to get it up to, I prefer 180 degrees. 180 to 200 is the ideal range. That way when you fly it, it'll get warm enough to boil the moisture off. And that is the key to keeping an engine alive. We were talking about with Tannis heaters and so forth, you do get condensate. You're going to get condensate setting them no matter what. The key, if you want an engine to live, you can forget all the other things I say. The key is getting that oil temperature to 180 degrees. So, what I'm telling you to do is pull out the oil sending unit, put it in an oil bath or water bath or something like that with a hot plate with a calibrated thermometer. And then bring it up to 180 degrees. And then I paint a mark right on the face of the gauge. And then when you go flying, something else to worry about, you got to worry about finding your way and everything else, finding a $100 hamburger, but you got to find out if your oil temperature is up there around 180. If it isn't, you need to take steps to get it up there. A lot of it has to do with poor baffles and seals and everything else, and it's hard to get it up to 180, especially if you're going for a $100 hamburger in the middle of the winter and it's 20 below. Don't worry about that. But you really need to, when you're doing most of your flying, you have to make sure that you're flying at cruise temperature. I'm not talking about climb out, but when you get to cruise temperature, you need to be running around 180 degrees. If it's running a lot hotter than that, the normal, they say the highest you should go is 240. On climb out, I don't really mind 240, but you really, once you get to altitude, it needs to be down around that 200. So 180 to 200 is the magic numbers. And like I said, that's the key to keeping an engine alive. Make it dangerous to meet the target. Another thing that people do is, especially up here in the north, they don't fly in the wintertime. So they'll put their airplane away, bring it out in the spring and so forth, clean it all up, change the oil so you got good fresh oil to fly on. Wrong idea. You need to change the oil before you put it away. That way you get all of the acids and all the crud that's in that crankcase out. You have fresh oil, change oil, and then put it away. Now in the spring when you want to go flying, take it out and go. Do not run up your engine during storage. A lot of people will do that, say, oh, I better go out to the airport, run up my engine and get some oil, fresh oil on all the parts. Well, what you do is you go out there and you hit the primer, you get it started, you circulate oil all over and so forth, get it up to about 50 degrees, 60 degrees, and shut it off and all the water condenses back. And now you have all the raw fuel from priming that will set up and form acids because of the sulfur in the fuel, and all you've done is increase the corrosion. So don't run it out. Go up, fly it, get it up to temperature, and then put it back. Okay, a lot of controversy as to what to do. The best thing for keeping an engine alive, we found is, for really low usage ones in the winter, is use a preservative oil. Now, both Phillips and Shell have one. Your local dealer may not have it, but you can get it on their websites. So it works fairly well. A lot of people talk about cam guard. Again, Badero was talking about he's seen some good results with that. All the other engine builders I've seen say they can't see anything. I don't know. So I have no real good results or data on that. But like I said, the preservative oils are approved for your aircraft. Cam guard really isn't, so you might want to try that. 80 oils, which one do you use? What's the best oil for your engine? I worked at Shell for a while, so I always said that, but in reality, as long as you have a Mill L22851 or SAJ 1899, all oils are compatible. So you could use Phillips one change, Shell the next, and next on the next. They are compatible. So forth. Multi-grade or single grade, if you ask me, my preference is I would use multi-grade in the winter, the one change or two changes that if you're going to do cold temperature flying, and then I'd go to single grade like a W100, an acid dispersion 100 in the summertime. You have better protection. Multigrades have quicker oil flow at cold temperatures, so you have better starting and so forth. Single grades are slightly better high temperature performance, and they leak less. Aeroshell 15W50 is the best leaking oil you have ever seen. They never put that in ad, I don't know why. We leak better than the competition, but if you've got a leak, it's going to find it. Multigrade in the winter, single grade in the summer, and again, you don't have to use shell multigrade, you can use Phillips multigrade in the winter, shell in the summer. It doesn't really matter, they work well. I always get into arguments like NASCAR fans. I use Pennzoil. I wouldn't use that Quaker State in my outboard. I mean, it's terrible stuff. It's the same thing. Shell owns Quaker State and Pennzoil, and it comes off the same tank, and everybody, oh no, this Pennzoil is no good. And add a quart of preservative oil for winter usage, or if you're going to leave the plane set for a long time. Okay, oil analysis. Good, bad, indifferent. Everybody use analysis? Once? Okay. Oil analysis is good, but you have to use it only to show patterns. If you come in and go out to your airplane and Buffalo. If, for example, if you're going to buy a new airplane, I'm going to do an oil analysis and see if the plane's in good condition. It really isn't going to tell you anything. Because, especially if you're selling an airplane, usually what they'll do is they'll change oil, so the oil's been in there for about maybe 1 or 2 hours, and so forth. Oh, this looks really good. No, not the engine may be shot, but the oil analysis will look good. And also, if you don't take a consistent pattern, you have to take the oil sample the same way every time. You know, you have to have it warmed up, drain it, take it midstream, and the whole thing. So you have to take the oil sample the same way every time, send it to the same lab. Then you can sometimes see a trend. I said sometimes, not always. One analysis can be very misleading. Samples will take it the same way, and they will not find the problems 100% of the time. When we were doing a approval for an oil a few years ago, we had a Continental TSIO 520, and it was running about 80 to 100 parts per million iron in the analysis. And they kept changing, coming back, it's bad, and so forth. We had it checked, we did internal inspections, everything else. It kept running. At the end of the TBO, we pulled the engine apart, and there wasn't anything that had to wear. We sent it down to Mobile. Now there's nothing wrong with it. On the other hand, we had a TIO 540, and every oil analysis was perfect. Iron was at the same level, 20 to 25 parts per million iron for the entire life of the engine. Pulled it apart, and the camshaft was round. Lobes were gone. You cut the filter apart, bunch of metal there. So oil analysis, like I said, it will catch some things, and it may give you some peace of mind, but it's not the cure-all for everything. Additives. Most important thing about additives is never use an automotive additive in your aircraft. A lot of people who are using Teflon treatments and everything else. The problem is most of the automotive additives contain zinc diethyl phosphates. They work very well, but they work by chemically attacking the parts. They'll sit there and coat your camshaft, and then as it goes along, goes around and hits the lifter, it'll shear that coating off. It's very effective. It's called sacrificial lubrication. But since it's so active, it attacks the metal, but it also attacks soft metal. And the most common one is in radial engines, it'll attack master rod bearings and dissolve them within a very short time. If you have copper alloy exhaust valve guides, they will dissolve those or put a tarnish on it and you'll stick valves. So never use an automotive additive.
Marble mystery oil?
Marble mystery oil, it does not have zinc. I really can't, let's see, I think maybe I have a slide on that. Do not use STP or other automotive brands for assembly. Lycoming LW16702 and the MIL C6529C are the only oil additives approved by the manufacturers. The MIL C, that's what's in Aeroshell 2F, preservative oils. TCP, tricresylphosphorus, is approved for use in both fuels and lubricants and seems to reduce exhaust valve stickings. A lot of the Lycomings had very low usage, and they would stick the exhaust valve, and that was sort of a lead built up on it. The TCP actually forms a lead phosphate, and it's a flaky deposit, so it will go from a tacky deposit to a flaky deposit, and so it keeps reducing it. Marble mystery oil, and I think Amblin is much the same thing. You ask about 20 mechanics, you'll get 35 different opinions on it. We wanted to see if it really, what it is it's a real light, thin mineral oil. And a lot of people swear up and down that it prevents intake valve sticking. We were going to try and prove or disprove that, and we figured we would take about 50 planes, on Marble mystery oil and 50 without, running side by side full TBO to see a significant difference. I can't really answer it. Like I said, I've heard literally thousands of mechanics and so forth say, I swear by it, it's all my intake valve sticking. But again, I have no data either way. But the other hand is it doesn't seem to hurt anything, unless you put too much in it. A lot of people will look at an additive, if a pint is good, let's put in a gallon. Well, now you just knock the octane of your fuel down. So no, as long as you use a small amount, it shouldn't really hurt anything. And so forth. And Amplin's another one the same way. Any questions on oil?
How about AMSoil? Some people have touted that for
AMSoil? Oh, the synthetic? Okay. Synthetics are an interesting thing. Shell started developing a synthetic oil back in the 60s. And we had a test oil out there. It was called WRMO 220. And it was a great oil. We put it in. I mean, fantastic. It was full synthetic. Everything looked really good starting, everything, low metals. I mean, everything was fine. We got out to about 500 to 600 hours, and all of a sudden, we started getting high oil consumption. I'm not talking about going from 4 to 5 or 5 down to 4 hours. I'm talking about going from 4 hours a quart to a quart and a half an hour. I mean, it just went way up. So we pulled the jugs, and it looked like somebody had took a gray epoxy and glued the rings into the pistons. And it was lead salts. And this happened quite a few times. Come to find out is synthetics are great lubricants. They're poor solvents. And in aviation with leaded fuels, we do need to use the base oil as a solvent to absorb the lead. So that's when we developed a semi-synthetic. So we had enough mineral oil in there to develop the to absorb the lead, and yet we had good oil. But along comes AMSoil, and they came out with a product very similar to ours, and they got into trouble. And there was, then Mobile came out, and they even paid Continental big money to endorse it. And sure enough, they get out 6, 8, 900 hours, and all of a sudden the oil consumption go outside. So yeah, synthetics just don't work with leaded fuels. But it's amazing how everybody has to learn that the hard way. So, any other, yes?
How about the light on the additive on the 8th model engine?
Yeah, that's the number 3, the Lycoming 16702 additive.
Right.
Yes.
Now, it's required that you either use that additive on the 50 hour oil change, or you can use the oil that it hasn't produced.
Yes.
But if you go beyond the 50 hours, you have to put more length of the additive in.
Yeah, what we say,
Every quart you put in.
what we say is if you have a Lycoming 0320H that needs a 16702 additive, if you're using either Aeroshell W100 Plus or the 1550 that has it in, as long as you use it as makeup oil, you will have enough additive and so forth. But they still don't recommend going much past 50 hours with an H engine, unless you've got the team on, then it's, you know. So, but yes, that is covered. But
You can't go beyond 50 hours.
you're not supposed to, yeah. But like I said, the big key there is you have to use it as makeup oil also. Yes.
I have an Ocean IDD Lycoming.
Yes.
And Daryl did a top over on, he said, oil ring on it, it's not chamfered like a big old 320. So it has a little more oil consumption, but it's not bad the first 10 hours. And then it seems like when the oil, you know.
Yeah, it gets diluted down, yeah.
Diluted down. Is there, just gotta go with it, with that, or is there anything else?
There's really not much. There are a lot of engines out there, I don't know if you heard the question, that once it gets a little wear on it, it'll go about 8 to 10 hours on the first quart of oil, and then it keeps going down. Pretty soon you're adding a quart every 4 to 5 hours. Yep, that's, it's quite common, and we have seen a lot of aircraft that way. And other than overhauling it or, you know, pulling the cylinders, there's really not much. I live with it. Oil's cheaper than parts by a long shot, especially aviation parts. Yes. Any other questions?
What oil would you use for a hot running engine, like a straight 100? That's the best you can do, or can you go heavier than that?
Oh, what do you call a hot running engine?
Well, 210, 220, when it's 60 out?
So, excuse me. So you're running 100 or 220
Yeah,
on climb out or cruise?
puttering around is like 2200
Okay,
RPM, so I'm not really working with putter.
right. You know, if you were on cruise, that's a tad bit high. Have you checked the oil cooler or?
I haven't checked the control or the temperature, no.
Okay, the first thing to do is check the accuracy of the gauge. We had one of them come in that way and it was almost 20 degrees off. So the first thing you have to do is check the accuracy of your gauge and then check the baffles and seals. A lot of times you'll have just not proper flow going through the oil cooler. Lyco or Continental has a spec for static pressure when you're flying that you should have above the engine. And that will give you enough head to force the engine, the coolant down. But yeah, I would check those things before, but 220 still is not, you know, just put it around, shouldn't be that bad. And the other thing is something like Aeroshell 15W50, because of the increased flow, will usually run cooler. And so that's an additive. Yeah, you might try that. Yes.
Make sure the winter blade is taken off.
Yeah, make sure that you don't have a winter baffle or some 200-mile-an-hour tape over it. Yeah, a lot of people have done that. One of the other things is when you switch from a multi-grade to a single grade, many times your oil consumption will go up or down. For example, because it leaks better, if you've got loose guides or visible leak, the multi-grade is going to go flow out faster. But if it's going past the rings, because of the improved flow characteristics, it will usually reduce the oil consumption past the rings. So a lot of people said, oh, I switched to the multi-grade and my oil consumption went way up. That can happen. And it can go the other way. But it's the physical properties, it's not wrecking the engine in any way. Yes?
Reference fluid or storage, if you change the oil, you put a quart of preservative oil in it, and you get a warm streak in the middle of winter, I don't know, why.
Go ahead.
Is it okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, and then, the first question, then the preservative oil, if you change the oil, it just moves to the bottom, but good as it goes around the end.
No, it comes out with the oil. It's dissolved in the oil.
Yeah, but I mean, because you're changing it, you put a quart in it, and it has to run, it has to circulate to the end.
Yeah, you do need to circulate it. You're right. Once
Drop it over or start it up?
I usually just fire it up because I usually after I change oil, I'll fire it up to make sure I don't have any leaks and so forth. And that's really all it takes.
Why not use STP or a mix of STP and free oil for engine buildup?
Because STP contains zinc phosphate. Now, if you don't have copper alloy exhaust valves, then it probably won't hurt. But you know, if you've got the old copper alloy exhaust valve guides, then it tends to tarnish those somewhat.
Does oil in a kept in a sealed container have a limited shelf life?
The military spec says that the oil companies must guarantee that the oil will meet the specifications after 3 years. But in answer to your question, I've taken samples after 10 years and it's still, there was a very small amount of additive settlement. So that there was a little bit more, but the oil or the above thing was still on spec. Shake it up, pour it in, it'll go, yeah. Because we get a lot of guys saying, hey, I've got these old white cans of composite cans, you know, what should I do with it? Well, actually, if you go down to the flea market, you can probably sell it for $10 a quart, but no, it works fine. Oil really doesn't. Now, if you have a drum of oil, many drums breathe, even though they're sealed, and you can occasionally get some milky oil in the bottom. And even that will be okay if you put it out and run it and get it warmed up to drive the moisture off. But you don't want to leave it sit there with the moisture in it.
I've got a number of cases that I've got
Yeah.
that I've got a few years ago.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Okay. Additives will not affix the sink engine. And that's one of the problems I have with a lot of these additives, especially like CamGuard. Like I said, I don't really have any real problems with it, but I don't have any data for it. But a lot of people will say, I use CamGuard. I don't really have to change oil as often. Wrong. The key to keeping an engine alive is getting that oil temperature up and changing oil. Those two things will do more to get your engine through the TBO than anything else you can do. So anything you do, you know, because, I've got to use this expensive additive, you know, so now maybe I'll go out to change an oil every 6 months. No, don't change that. The oil temperature and oil change are the most important things. Grease. What kind of grease do you use in a bearing? What? Bearing grease. Very good. Give the man a cigar. You want to give this talk? My voice is starting to go. You sound like you know what we... Any other suggestions? Which grease? The only grease that you can use is the one that's approved for that application. They are approved by mill spec, like most wheel bearings will be a mill G3545 grease. And that is the only grease you could use in there. And there are very good reasons for that. The other thing is how do you redo bearings? If you're going to redo wheel bearings, what do? You wipe them off and clean them. What do you? Okay, what do you wash them with? Okay, then what do? You put it on your finger and spit it out. Okay. Okay, now what do? Okay, you missed a step. If you didn't hear him, what he said is, what? Yeah, no, there's still another step. What if you didn't hear what he said is if you're going to repack bearings, you take them out, you wash them off in mineral spirits. Now you air dry them, you blow them, don't put them on your finger, air dry it and so forth. Then you wipe it off and then you inspect it. See if there's any pits or anything else. But now the most critical kind of step comes in is you then wash it with alcohol. Gin works really good. Shout to you. No. But usually use IPA. The reason for the alcohol wash is it washes all of the film that you have from the mineral spirits. It also washes your grimy fingerprints off. And now you better have rubber gloves on. You wash it with alcohol, you let it air dry, and now you pack it. So very critical that you get that film off. Inspect, wash with alcohol, use rubber gloves when packing, and if you store pack bearings, do not use an oil absorbing paper. They have a mineral paper or something that you should store it in so it doesn't leach out all of the oil out of the grease. Then you put it on. One of the other things, all of the people buy a brand new plane and they want to have it clean. So they're out with a power washer, power washing the airplane. Good idea, it takes the oil off the bottom and everything else. If, however, you hit bearings directly, what happens is the seals are designed to keep the grease in. You hit it with a power washer, you blow water into that bearing, and now you have moisture in it and you're going to have corrosion. So if you're going to power wash an airplane, make sure that you don't hit the bearings, because it's really going to shorten their life. A dirty airplane may not look as good, but at least the bearings will last. Okay, any questions on grease? Anyone on?
You said change oil every 50 hours
Yeah.
or every 4 months. Well, what happens if like some kind of fish like 5, 6, 10 hours, 4 months? And why the 4-month time period versus hours?
Because the more it sits, the more it rusts from sitting. And then once you start it up, the cam lifters and all the parts wear off that rouge, and you get that oil, that rust rouge or metal rouge into the oil, and the only way to really get it out is drain it out. So, yeah.
Oil turns acidic.
Does it what?
It slowly turns acidic from oil.
If you, where it usually becomes acidic is if you have too much crankcase dilution in it and moisture. Because with the crankcase dilution from fuel and so forth, you get sulfur. Sulfur combines with the moisture that you didn't drive out to form sulfuric acid, and yes, it becomes acidic and it just rusts that much more. Now, with a Lycoming, you really don't have, you have a much greater problem because they made a perfect humidity cabin. They put the oil down here and they put the camshaft up here, and then you have the cowl which blows out all the cold air in right on the camshaft. So the camshaft is always the coolest part, so all the moisture comes out of the crankcase, and as we were saying earlier, especially if you put the heating pads just under the oil, you get you heat up all the oil, and all the moisture goes straight up, hits the camshaft, and stays there.
We use
Yeah,
About 6, I think that's fine. Look out the breather tube and
yeah, yes.
then plug it in.
Yeah, you need to pull the air out, get rid of the moisture. It works very well. And the same thing, the Tannis heater, you don't, we had talked about whether that's good or bad to leave plugged in. A lot of it depends on if it's sitting outside or not. If it's sitting outside at 20 degrees, then you better have a blanket on it to keep the whole assembly warm. Any other questions? Any questions on fuels?
Are you working on a new fuel?
Shell is working on a new fuel. I'm not.
Close to being approved?
No. Right now there are 4 candidates, 2 from Swift, 1 from, was it BP, and 1 from Shell. And they're testing them, and it's a long road to hoe because we do know that leaded fuels rate considerably better than unleaded fuels. So if you had a leaded fuel with 100 octane, it would look like about 103, 104 octane unleaded fuel. We also know that when they rated most of the airplanes that we have today to determine the amount of margin of safety they had, they didn't use an exactly 100 octane fuel. They just went down to the local FBO, got some fuel and rated it. And most of that was 103, 104 and so forth. So there's a very significant margin. If you have 100 octane unleaded fuel, there's a significant octane differential between what that aircraft really requires. So it's going to be probably a fair amount of lawsuits on this. And the question, and then the other question is, say if you have an airplane with superior cylinders in it, and ECI pistons, and different cams and so forth, who are they going to sue? Is it the original engine manufacturer, which the FAA tested, or is it going to be the PMA parts manufacturer, the oil supplier, or who's going to get sued? It's a trick question. All of them are going to get sued. We know that. So. What kind of additives? Again, Marvel mystery oil, as long as it's not overdone, because for every percent of it, you lose an octane number or 2. So as long as you don't overdo it, we don't see any negative effect of it.
There was an article in the Pub Club newsletter 2 years ago about Marvel mystery oil mixing in fuel
Yeah.
was obsolete. And Amsoil, two-cycle snowmobile oil,
Yeah.
Amsoil has a synthetic oil that when you mix it in your 6 gallons of auto fuel or whatever,
Yeah.
it doesn't just, it disperses and stays dispersed. Where Marvel mystery oil, if it sits long enough, will
Tend to
mix
settle
itself.
down.
So
Yeah.
if you're using Marvel, you want to shake your can when you put it in your tub.
Well, either that or fly rough air. I mean, you just go out there. Yeah.
But they say the synthetic Amsoil two-cycle oil is a little bit better
Yeah.
than Marvel.
Yeah, I know, I ride snowmobiles a lot, and there are some people who swear that Amsoil is the best thing since sliced bread, but the people that really run it, you can't really see any difference. So, yeah. Well, I'm about time up, unless somebody has, another question. Okay, thank you.